11 o'clock on third Sunday morning means it's time for chai and wine from the Ruparel College. And with us today is Dr. Sarita Kamath, who was at the Vigyan Pratibha program at the Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education, AIFR, and she's going to tell us about the fantastic world of fungi. Now, if you're watching us live, or it's recorded on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube, please remember to put your comments and questions in the chat. We will try and answer them. Of course, if you're here, you can raise your hand and ask questions, no problem. Let me briefly introduce Chai and Wai, and then Sarita, for those of you who are here for the first time or are watching for the first time, Chai and Wai is a TFR outreach event that happens on the first, third, and fifth Sundays of every month, if a month has a fifth Sunday. And we are at Crispy Theatre on the first Sunday, at Ruparel College on the fifth Sunday, on the third Sunday. And if a month has a fifth Sunday, we are live from the lab at the IFR. So 2 weeks from now, we will be live from the ultra high power, ultra high intensity laser lab in the IFR. That's going to be an online only event. And following that, the first Sunday of November, which is 5th of November, we will be at Prithvi looking at the physics or the lack of physics in movies, whichever way you look at it. And for now, we're going to be discussing the world of fungi. Okay, so just to introduce Sarita, she is from Mumbai, did her bachelor's from Ruya, and then went to Baroda at the MS University for her master's in biochemistry, microbiology, and then did her PhD from IIT Bombay in something related to biochemistry, microbiology, somewhere in that interdisciplinary region. And after that, she's been at the Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education. And today, some fun with fungus.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
All yours. All yours.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, thanks a lot. I hope I'm audible clearly. Yeah. So it's great to be here and be a part of this thing. I've not done a chai and wine in person before, so I'm quite excited. And I think, like from the topic, I think all of you all are aware that, it's something to do with biology, I'm sure. But then biology has so many interesting and exciting things that we hear about, right? We hear about viruses, we hear about DNA, so much. And here we are today going to talk about fungus. So let's see what is there in store for us today and whether I am able to convey some of the excitement, and let's see what happens. All right, so let's begin. Okay. If at any point, you want to stop me or you're not able to hear me or anything want to ask, just feel free. Okay, sorry.
That?
Oh.
Fine. Go there. Share screen. The slideshow. Okay, go here. 3 dots. 3 dots. 3 dots. 3 dots. Go here. 3 dots. Okay.
Just keep going.
Okay, so that won't bug you. This won't bug you. You're getting it, right?
Sorry, baby.
Those screens.
Yeah.
Desktop or something?
No, wait. What if we just press presentation here?
Yeah.
Will it not work?
Okay, try this. Maybe you're...
Okay. Is it coming on?
Is it coming on the thing? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
It's not just useful.
Okay. Sorry about that. So yeah. So yeah, let's begin. So first things, let me just put this. Okay. So when we hear see something called fungus, or we just hear something fungus, what is the first thing or the emotion that, I've just given some options. What is it? Do you go like, oh, or do you go like, wow, or do you go like, what is fungus? Okay, so either it will be first. Any other option? If it's on food, then you, and if it's on a petri dish. Okay. So maybe you're one of the lucky ones who gets to see fungus on a petri dish. Many of us probably see it on food and maybe on clothes. Sorry? Yes, yes, forest, of course. And even in our, oh yeah, yeah. So I think we do know now, most of us do know that mushrooms also are fungi. And many a times, even in these some restaurants, you would find these dishes made out of mushrooms. They have these fancy descriptors called fungi or fungi. Okay. So at least for me, let me say for me also, the first option was something that was a more spontaneous response. Okay, so not a problem. Also, there may also be many people who we just use this word fungus, not really knowing what fungus is. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is what the EU belong to, right? I mean, these many of these pictures I've clicked myself, and whatever happens, we always have some tiffin that gets fade back by mistake, and we get all these things. Okay, but then why is it that it is not a good thing to have this? After all, I mean, there is fungus growing outside, as somebody said, in the forest. But then why this is not good for us? So basically, is it good to consume these type of things? No, it isn't. And also, there are many cases where we hear about fungal infections. I'm sure we have heard about, especially on our skin and all. Nails, exactly. On our nails, skin, and not just us. Actually, these fungi are so notorious. They actually haven't left any system. So they are actually going and infecting different things that are not just us. We are not the only victims, but they are actually bothering a whole lot of living organisms. Okay, so here you can see, so this is just an example of the different, I've just given the example of the potato, but different kind of crops. And if anybody is involved in agriculture, they would know that it really is a big problem, having fungal infection. Similarly, as we just said, our skin and nails and other places, we do get fungal infection. Now, one thing I would like to say is why these fungal infections are not so good is one is because this fungus is actually growing. You can see this something like what we see in our food. But it can also be that there are certain toxic compounds or poisonous compounds that these fungi just secrete. So you may not, the fungus may not actually grow in you, but these compounds, these are small compounds, these can actually be poisonous. So they can interfere in our different bodily functions, and hence they are poisonous. So they may not infect, yet they may be dangerous for us. Okay. And I think there is one thing that is bothersome to most of us is different types of insects. I mean, of course, if there are entomologists, they wouldn't agree, those who actually love and study insects. But these kind of small insects, which actually bother so many other animals, fungi actually also trouble these. So have you all heard about this zombie fungus? Zombie ant actually. So this word zombie is quite popular these days because of different movies and things like that. So I'm just presenting one example here, okay, which is a fungus which actually is infecting an ant, and I'm just going to show you a small video. Don't come in the way. Okay, so basically, what you see on the left is an ant on the leaf. I hope that much is understood. And you can see its body and its legs, and you can see some kind of an antenna popping out of its head, right? So let's see what happens actually. So basically, this is I'll just tell you about it. Sorry, what is it? Yeah, so that there is a complicated name there, which I'm not good with. It's something else actually. Yeah, yeah. So that kind of, I mean, it doesn't have to be the same name, but because this is a fungus which infects an insect, what infects a human would be little different. So basically, what happens is that these ants are found in the forest and tree areas. Okay. So what happens is that it comes in contact with some of this fungus. This fungus then attacks this ant and it infects its entire body. And mainly it focuses near the head part of the body of the fungus, of the ant. And it makes the ant, see, you can see it kind of makes the ant behave in very, very weird manner. I'll get back to this. Okay, it can keep playing. And normally this ant lives on the under the canopy of trees. But when this fungus actually starts infecting the ant starts exhibiting different kind of behavior, and hence it's called zombie. So it starts climbing up, which is it leaves its colony. It is also shown here, and then you can see that it starts going into a state wherein something starts popping out of its head. So that is what you can see. The ant exhibits different kind of behavior. It goes and attaches on the underside of a leaf. So it's ulta. And when it's ulta, this is what happens. It anchors itself and then you'll see it. So you'll see a stalk-like thing that comes out of its head and then a ball-like thing that is there. Okay. And then finally the ant is dead and that ball-like thing ruptures and the fungal spores are spread. So basically, what this fungus is doing is that for its own survival, I mean, the way it has got selected in nature is that it is making use of the ant as its host and giving rise to weird behavior. So what did the fungus, like what is the end advantage of all this is that imagine if the ant was on the floor and the same process had happened. The spores would have just spread only in that nearby area and we don't know whether there is enough food for the fungus or not. What the zombie behavior is making sure is that the ant is going at a slight height, okay, and attaching at the underside where there will be more wind current. And when the ball-like thing bursts, the spores would be dispersed everywhere. What are spores and all, I'll just be telling you about it, so you'll be able to correlate. I'm not sure if my family came on. Okay, so that was just a funny tidbit, and I'm very glad some of you all were also aware of that. That was nice. So we have all seen these things. I mean, we have even seen these kind of videos on probably the TV. So any idea, apart from what we see, you know, spoiled food and spoiled things, do we have any idea about how fungus looks? So for example, when we say animal, we have a certain idea, right? Okay, you know, insects are animals or these lions and tigers are animals. Same for plants, same even for bacteria. I mean, slowly over the years, I think all of us, even in advertisements, they show those tiny, this type of things, right? With the blue light shining on them that there are bacteria. So we do have a rough idea कि हाँ bacteria कैसे होता है, कैसे होता होगा, या plants वगैरह. But what about fungus? Yes, agreed. Mushroom we all know about. We eat them or probably you see them. But is fungus only that much? These you know, mushrooms that spring up, or what is it? So let's try to have a little fun with this. Okay. So I'm going to, I mean, we are just going to together, let's try to identify what's going on over here. Okay. So I'm showing you one picture and then another. Okay. So what do you think? Does this look like an enlarged version of this to anybody? Does it look like in some sense, right? Because this is what you see with your naked eye. This is a microscopic image actually. So it turns out that no, it's not. This is a plant, a dandelion stalk with the flower, which you all may be aware of. And this is actually an image of a fungus called aspergillus. So the black spots that you see on your bread sometimes. So this is what, if you kind of zoom it in, quite a beautiful structure, though it looks so ugly, right? So that is one. So next. So we saw those rods. Any idea what this could be? Sorry, yeast. It could be yeast. Okay, both of them are yeast. The right one looks like yeast. So you're right. The right one is yeast, and the left one actually is a bacterium. It's a staphylococcus. Many a times we hear from our doctors that you've got a staph infection, so take an antibiotic and stuff like that. So, but what I want to tell you here is that this yeast is a fungus, right? So this yeast is not that cottony thing that is appearing on your food, but it is looking like this. Okay, so now let's all gear up and take a look on the screen. So I'm going to put some pictures here with the numbers. Okay, and just take a look and tell me how many of these pictures do you think could be a fungus? Now that we have seen that fungus can be a little unexpected, what do you think? You can take a look. You can tell me, like, out of 6, how many do you think could be fungus? 5 could be fungus. Any other number? Yeah, 1 is, I think, the obvious answer here. That 1 is okay. So 5 could be fungus. 5 of the total could be fungus. 2 could be, 3 could be, 4 could be. Okay. So maybe the online audience also may have had some guesses. Okay. So yeah, so we are right to some extent. There is no question about this. Now, among this, right, 5 and 6, the structure looks a little similar, right? So this 5 is actually a mushroom again. It's a mushroom that glows in the dark. And but so it's a fungus. But this one is an animal. It's a jellyfish actually, which also glows. We know about. Then among 2 and 3, 2 is not a fungus and 3 is a fungus. This is a fungus which we'll be also talking about a little bit later. And this is a kind of a protozoan. So you must have heard about amoeba and things like that. So this is little bit in that category. So, and this is hydra, which comes under an invertebrate animal. So the point I'm trying to put here is that when you say fungus, there isn't a very set thing that you should expect, because it's a very diverse kind of a group. Just like animals are diverse, but we are much well versed with them because we can see them with our naked eye. In the case of fungi, only thing we can see the naked eye is the mushroom. But what I'm trying to tell you is that there is much more which cannot be, which we may not be aware about. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, that these fungi are not plants, though some of them look like plants. They are not animals. They are not bacteria. They are not even protozoans like amoeba or something. They are a different thing in itself. They are a separate kingdom called fungi. Okay. And and they are eukaryotes, as in they are not like bacteria. They are far more complex than bacteria. Okay. So I think whenever a little bit of slightly probably boring stuff, but we'll get over with it. Is that in biology, we always talk about, how something looks. And the next question is, how does it reproduce? Like, how does 1 become 2, right? That is a very important question that is always talked about in biology. So what about fungi? Now, we spoke about yeast some time back, which looked like these circles. Okay. So when we have fungi which are like this, they can be single cell fungi, and sometimes there are fungi which look like a mesh. So that white thing that you see on your rotting bread or on leftover food, or even on walls, sometimes moist walls with leakage, that is generally called a filamentous fungus. So name itself is clear, like it's like filament. So when you have a single cell thing like yeast, it shows a comparatively simple way of division. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4. Okay. And yeast is the example under this. So it actually buds off. It gives off buds. Okay. But when you have the other one, the entire process is little bit more complex. Okay. So you have this mesh. So this mesh is nothing but that cottony thing you see. That's called a mycelium as a technical term. This mycelium kind of just spreads. It will, if you allow it enough food, it will spread over a large area. And when the nutrients kind of get over, it forms this kind of a stalk and a kind of this ball, which we saw on the ant, right? And we also see them as mushrooms. So they can be tiny or they can be huge, like mushrooms. And what is there in this actually? They have spores. Now, spores are something like something not similar to, but something like what we know about pollen grains in flowers. But these are like these tiny, they are very tiny, microscopic. You wouldn't, in the sense that if there are many, you can see. So what the black thing that you see on your bread or the green thing, they are the spores. But a single spore, if you want to observe in detail, you would need a microscope. Okay, and these spores then disperse everywhere. And when they find food, they again settle and start forming this mycelium. So we have this varied forms of even reproduction among fungi. So though they are one kingdom, there is actually every fungus would be different. It's very difficult to actually know about all of them in detail. It's very difficult. Okay, so yeah, so I have shown you this, right? Next, obviously, I think we have an idea. All of us have seen. Somebody spoke about mushrooms in the forest. So, what do you think fungus must be eating? Like where you find them always gives us an idea of what something eats, right? Because food guides where we are. So, decaying matter. Okay. Anybody else has any thoughts? We spoke about infections. What happens there? I mean, we are healthy and we get infected. So it's not a decaying matter, right? Right. So you're right. Decaying matter is what is called as, saprophyte. So whenever you find a tree that has fallen, slowly you'll find it, some mushrooms sprouting out of it. But they can also be parasitic because they cause infections. And they can also be symbiotic, and we'll come to this slowly. Symbiotic is where they are not really usurping somebody. They are giving some and taking some. Okay, so yeah. So we somewhere in the beginning we said the fantastic world of fungi, and probably we have not reached the fantastic part yet. We are just beginning to understand ki kya hota hai and things like that. So let me just, as I said, it's too vast. So I am just going to try to put to you all some few examples, say 2, 3, or 4, 5 examples, which give a glimpse of the different things that this fungus can do. So remember this picture? I had shown you this in that quiz for, yeah, and the other one that looked very similar but was not. So this actually is called, so this is the name, Philolobus miscellaneous, and it's also called hat thrower or dung cannon. Now this name itself is giving us some clues. It's found in a very interesting place in the dung of animals. So it's not visible so much, it's quite tiny, but generally wherever there is grass eating, herbivorous animals grazing and their dung, you would find it. Why is this being told as fantastic or something? Is something to do again with the spores. You see this tiny thing here? So that is the spore that is waiting to come out. Okay. Now let's see. Yeah. So what actually this thing does is that it actually propels these spores at very high speed. So that's why, I mean, the name, dung cannon. So it's like, that's what it does. Okay. And whenever we talk about fast, and if I ask you, what is the fastest animal or the fastest creature, what would come to your mind? Probably cheetah would come. Yeah. Or eagles or those kind of magnificent animals, which we have seen. Nobody would think that fungus would also probably be somewhere in the top 5, right? But these speeds with which the stalk actually propels the fungus, it's a living organism, it are pretty high, and you can see the numbers here. The distance it covers is less, so it's not really going to go kilometers like other animals, but in that short distance also, they actually, you can see the acceleration, which is so many times the acceleration due to gravity, that kind of acceleration, and pretty high speeds, which actually come close to these at least comes close to cheetah. It's not the. So I'll just show you something. Now, what I want to say is that how do you know this, right? I said you can't see it, and it's just going, say, only itna distance, and it's doing it so fast that 1 second you see it, and next second, kuch bhi nahi hoga. So, but how people come to know about this is that scientists have actually tried to study this. Okay, there are people who actually study this in detail, trying to see what speeds are achieved. And what I'm going to show you, I'll just play a small video. There is no audio in it, and you just have to be patient and watch it. It's around 10 seconds. Okay, so. So, want me to play it again, or you're okay? So before I play it again, maybe I'll just say that this is like a slow motion video. Okay. If you were to see it in real, you wouldn't see anything. I mean, you wouldn't even make it out. And there is this number here. Can you see this? 2.5 into 10 raised to 5 frames per second. those many number of frames the camera is capturing, and that is why you're able to see. I'll play it again. So it's so all the details about this, how it does this and all are a matter of current research as well. So this is not a done and dusted topic. These kind of so newer things appear in nature, and there is always something that one needs to find out. So that is one thing, and the title itself says right, fastest flights in nature. Now this is something I showed you before, that there are fungi, many of them actually, which do glow. Only reason we don't see it as is because we need really pitch dark. So if you go into really interior forest and things like that, you do sometimes. And these are actually these pictures are from a newspaper article. Unfortunately, like some of my colleagues have clicked pictures, but was not able to put them here. But to tell you that this is something that could be observed by y'all also. So it's not. I mean, you would find entire things glowing green, or you would find these type of things. Even in India, in Northeast and all, many new fungi with these properties. Now, why is it glowing? We know fireflies, and we also saw jellyfish, right? So all of these show this green glow, but the way in which the mushrooms show this glow is more similar to the fireflies and less similar to what the jelly. So the jellyfish have this protein called green fluorescent protein. So it's a protein which actually kind of, with the help of the way it is structured, it helps to bring about this glow. But here it is by a series of different reactions that, and there is an enzyme, luciferase and so on, so which actually helps to give this. Now, why this is happening, you may ask. So if for different fungi, the reasons are different, okay? Whether it's to attract, kind of evade a prey, or to attract somebody so that they can pass its spores everywhere, different reasons. And this again is just to give you a glimpse of how beautiful fungi can look. These are all pictures clicked by some of my colleagues. Some of them, these are in Mumbai in the HBCSC campus itself. Some are in some other places of Maharashtra. Okay, so these are quite beautiful, right? And you also, I'm sure, must have seen. Sometimes we just need to pause and bend down and just look at them a little more carefully rather than just saying, oh, mushroom. It's not like that. There is a lot of variety in it. So another thing that I personally find quite fantastic about it is this. So we have spoken about how these fungi are, manipulating the ants or something else to make sure its spores are going. But it does something more also, which is called mimicry. Okay. So this is an example of an insect again. Okay, an insect egg. So you can see this picture A. Okay, so these are the insect, the termite eggs. So they lay eggs, right? A lot of them together and take care of them. So there is this particular fungus, which I am not putting the name here. It's commonly also called cuckoo fungus or a termite ball fungus. You can see this oval things here, and you can also see this circles here. Are you all able to see? So the oval things are actually the termite eggs. The circles are not termite eggs at all. They are actually the fungal things, the organs which contain the spores. But they are mimicking them quite well. See, it's blending it quite well, so much that the insect doesn't know that there is fungus growing in its nest. And it cares for it just like it cares for its own eggs by coating it with its protective thing. So the fungus gets protection. This is just the fungus if you want to see the sclerotia, it's called. Okay. So this is one way. So that is why this, just as a cuckoo bird lays its eggs in another's nest, so similar terminology has been given. Okay. Another case is, so can you just look at these pictures, right? So there is some flower here and a plant. Both are plant related things. Any idea what's going on here? So this is a flower. Okay. So yes, it is a flower, but only one of them is a real flower and the other is what is called as a pseudo flower. Can you guess which one could be a real flower and which one pseudo? Pseudo means false flower, not a real flower of the plant. Okay. Yeah. So A is the pseudo flower. You're right. So this is actually not a flower at all. It's just the fungus which is growing in a cluster. There is no flower there. And this is how the real flower actually looks. So what happens is that this is a fungus called fusarium. It's again a filamentous kind of a fungus. So again, you would ask that why all this is happening. So just imagine from in the nature point of view, flowers hai to insects would come, and insects are pollinators. We know that they actually transfer pollen grains. Similarly, if they are going to be deceived by this as a flower, they would also transfer the spores of the fungus. So this is like an evolutionary strategy, that the fungus is using. Just propagate, forget about others. And this is also quite interesting. This is a blueberry plant ke, if the fungus is infecting, it actually makes the leaf and the plant produce some volatile compounds, which are like the scent of the natural blueberry flower. And insects are attracted by the scent, and then similar story goes on. So these are just two examples in which there are many other examples where fungi actually mimic other things. They are mimicking for its own thing. So yeah, so I have just tried to put together some different kind of examples which are a little bit surprising, if not anything else. Okay, so we have spoken about fungus kya hota hai and nature mein what all it does, but is it useful for us? Okay, so what do we think? Both ways. It's useful in the petri dish. You said petri dish may it's quite. So both. Anybody think yes, no? So I think many of us are aware of this. It's just that. So what is most common? Yeast, right? So yeast will ring a couple of bells for us. One is you would think of beer or those kind of things, or you would also think of bread, different types of bread. So the baker's yeast, right? Brewer's yeast, baker's yeast. These are all yeast which are fungi. Also, these different cheeses that we in India, it's maybe not that common to have different types of cheese, but then there are these different flavored and different aromatic cheese. And cheese, the process of cheese making involves bacteria and fungus both. They actually give that smell which some people love and some people hate, right? So mushrooms, of course. Also condiments like soy sauce. Its fermentation involves aspergillus and such fungi. A host of medicines. So penicillin, right? I'm sure we have all read about penicillin. That was the first antibiotic that was discovered. So that was from penicillium. That's why penicillin comes from that. So that was identified first from a fungus. And there are many other antibiotics like cephalosporins and things like that. Not just antibiotics, many of the medicines that we take for, cholesterol, reduction of cholesterol, different statins, these are all coming from fungi. So these fungi have these amazing properties, many of them have these properties that when it grows, nothing happens, it just grows. Then when it's finishing its growth phase, it reaches this secondary growth phase, it's called as a secondary growth phase, where it starts secreting things for its own advantage in nature. But humans, as usual, have exploited that, and they are being used on a large scale for production of all these substances, which we routinely consume. Sorry? Yeah, so the thing, okay, so the question is that why is producing all this advantageous to the fungus, right? It's advantageous to humans, but why is the fungus producing it in the first place? So the thing is that, say, for example, antibiotics. So in nature, the fungus is growing along with so many other fungi, bacteria, and things, right? So if it has to compete, there is, so for us, food may not always be scarce, but in nature, food is very scarce. So these compounds actually help the fungus to kind of kill or inhibit other bacteria or other kind of insects so that the food is more available to them. So that is the reason why it has probably got selected. Nahi to for our use, the fungus will never produce that, right? Is that okay? It's the soy sauce won't have fungus, in it, but the fermentation of the beans that is done, उसमें fungi भी होते हैं, fungi and bacteria both are there, aspergillus, yeah. And then there would be a purification process and so on. But in cheese and all, many a time it's sorry. Okay, so the question is that what is secondary growth that I spoke about? So basically, in many microorganisms, okay, growth is divided into different ways. So initially, when suppose there is a lot of food, so for a fungus, food can be just some dead and decaying matter. If you introduce fungus, there is a lot of food. It grows abundantly. That's called a growth phase, where whatever form of reproduction that we discuss, it's happening. A lot of growth is happening. Slowly the nutrients start getting over, right? Because the fungi are not getting up and going somewhere else. They're spreading in that area. When the nutrient starts reducing, that is the time when the threat of other bacteria and all starts coming in. At this time, it's called secondary. So here in the secondary phase, lot of reproduction is not happening. It's more of maintenance. And maintain karne ke liye, whatever the fungus needs to produce, it will produce. Okay. But I just want to make one extension to your question. When we use it in the industries, we are not putting other bacteria there. The fungus by itself is such that when it reaches that phase, it starts producing. So it's useful in nature, but we are kind of using that knowledge for our benefit. Okay. So one last thing, we spoke about different foods. So what is common in all of these, you think? Most of these I've clicked. Sugar, okay. Anything else? Also look at this, which are not the store-made things. These are natural products. Okay, so anybody would like to say something? I heard citrus fruits here. Sugar. Citric acid, okay. This one? Yeah. This is a jam and this is a muramba. Yeah. These are juices. This is all your chips and other things that you eat. And these are also some sauces. Okay. Now I'm going to add 2 more pictures to this. Okay. And now what do you think is common in all of this? So we said sugar, we said citrus fruit, citric acid, and things like that. So you remember this little thing? You've seen it before, right? In a couple of places till now. And I told you that this is aspergillus fungus. And I'm sure this is also a common theme. You all must have seen this. So there is a link between all of these images actually. And the link, as you all have rightly pointed out, is something to do with citrus. Okay, so first thing, all these different products, especially those that we buy from the market, these sour and sweet products always have citric acid added in it. If you go home today and just you look at some of your, food packets, many of them would have citric acid, so and so percent, 1%, 0.1%, whatever. Okay. Now, this is being used in food since very long time. And the source from where the citric acid came was these fruits. So these citrus fruits, lemons, oranges, and some such fruits used to be cultivated in large scale, and citric acid used to be got and purified by certain processes. Then about say 100 years back, this knowledge came up that this fungus called Aspergillus niger, if grown in a particular manner and under certain conditions and given a lot of sugar, it will just vomit out citric acid. Why I'm saying vomit? Because it actually secretes it out. Now, citric acid is a very important metabolite even for us. It's in our body. Nobody can afford to release it out because it's important. But this fungus, for still reasons which are not completely known, does this. So now nobody grows lemons and oranges since many decades. What they do, they have these huge fermenters in which this thing, the black things are the spores actually. So this fungus, it's the spores of Aspergillus. So somewhere during the process, because fungi very routinely are in association with plants, what you see, so the next question sometimes is it safe to have it and things like that? You can wash it and have it. It's not a problem. So many of these fungi actually are not harmful for us. Unless we are really ill or something, we are in a situation where we are undergoing an organ transplant or something. In those cases, fungi can be more problematic. By and large, they are quite safe. Only these notorious ones come up, but they are few actually. Okay. So I was actually also working in a lab where they were trying to find out this mystery key, why this fungus is actually secreting this citric acid out. It's not yet solved. People are exploring different angles. We were also exploring some angles, but this is quite a mystery that why this. So this is also something that is quite a subject of study. Nevertheless, the reason is not known, but we are happily using it in our industries to produce citric acid. Okay. So talking of food, talking of all the tasty things that we put in our mouth, I'm sure all of us also know about healthy gut and probiotics. We all hear about this these days. And we talk about good gut bacteria. So maybe we have heard this, right? Good gut bacteria. We should eat curd because it gives us good gut bacteria. But there are also good gut fungi, which are, they maintain a low profile, I would say. I mean, they are not much known, but it's true that there are so many different types of good fungi in our gut and in our mouth. And they are needed for our good health. Okay. This also is something why I'm mentioning it's a topic of research. It's like what exactly they are doing, but they are quite abundant. But only one thing is that they are abundant, but they are also a little smart, as in certain cases, they can even cause infection. So it's a very fine balance. Okay, so they are good. Most of them are good. Some of them can also give us infection sometimes. Okay, so I think we've done a lot of things about how fungi are useful to us, bread, this, that. Let's go a little bit. Let's think a little beyond now. Okay, so let's go a little outside and peep outside our window. So we know about the different things we eat and different things we don't eat, right? Which we cannot digest, or the things that are found in our nature, animals, plants, trees, fruits. So what do you, I'm sure you know that we cannot eat and consume and digest everything, right? So what is very difficult to break down, basically? So say, for example, the tree trunks or the thick peels of fruits. These are quite thick. I mean, physically also they're quite sturdy, right? And they're not very easy to break down. And but yet, if you throw a eaten fruit and if you keep throwing it, there will be a time where it will disappear, right? It's not going to be there forever. So so also fallen trees and forests and so many other things. But what is it? I mean, it's so difficult to break down, right? It's not so easy. But here again, I mean, what do you think is helping to break these things? Similarly, we do composting for our waste. It's quite popular these days. So what exactly is happening in all these cases? What is it? I mean, I think you already know what I'm going to say is that fungi are playing a role here. And the reason why they are doing it is because they have a very strong weaponry with them. Those are, series of enzymes. Now, enzymes are certain proteins which carry out certain reactions very nice. So, for example, you know about starch, right? We have these starchy vegetables, potatoes, beets. And then I spoke about tree trunks, I spoke about fruit peels. What is it that is making these things very sturdy is certain molecules are there in it. Say starch is there in these potatoes. The tree trunks have lignin. It's like multiples of glucose molecules. So we know glucose, right? Which we have in our, it's very easy to digest. But many of these glucose get linked to each other and they form a big polymer, which becomes very difficult to degrade. So one of the rare properties that fungi possess in general is that they have many of these enzymes together. It's not a common thing to find these different kind of enzymes in high concentrations in even bacteria. Say one bacteria may only have an amylase, but fungi in general would have many of these and they release them out. And that is why actually all our waste disposal policies or decisions, we do not realize, but actually fungi are the ones. I mean, think of it this way. There are many bacteria. I think we all know that bacteria carry out composting. But ये tree trunk को कौन तोड़ेगा पहले? You know, there are nutrients hidden, but bacteria cannot easily access. Fungi actually will release these weapons called enzymes, break it down. Then things will become available for other bacteria. So I'm not saying that it's just fungi, but they have this role which is quite important. So just imagine if these were not there, silently lying in our soils, what would have happened? Basically, you would have had heaps. You would have had heaps and heaps. Bacteria may not have been, I mean, bacteria also have these functions, but fungi are and these fungi, some of them can survive in high temperatures. So I don't know, I mean, compost, if anybody of y'all have been involved in the making of compost, in somewhere during the process, the compost becomes very hot. I don't know if and then it cools down again. So that is because a lot of activity is happening, and these fungi are able to survive at 60 degrees, 70 degrees centigrade also, and still do their work. So that is where they come into the picture. And it's not just about our kitchen waste, it's also about other types of waste that we make. So for example, these, different oil spills that we hear about in the seas, which eventually also affect the land. And when there is so much in the land, it cannot be suitable for life. So much of those fats and heavy metals from the industries. So there are many examples that are coming. I've just given 3 or 4. There are hundreds. If you go back and Google, you'll find so many where different fungi are being used actually to remediate the soil or kind of heal the soil and get it back. And how would you know this? So you would take a contaminated soil, put in a fungus, make it grow, and you would plant a seed before, and it wouldn't germinate, but later it would. So the fungus has actually helped to make the soil good to grow again. So that power is just being recognized now, and it's just the beginning where we have to, unlock the potential. So that was the thing I wanted to say. And the last thing I would like to tell you is, so we have spoken about degradation all this while, right? Degradation of kitchen waste, degradation of oil, but it's not just about the kachra part. It's not just about the degradation. It's so basically, I told you about, remember this? I told you about the single cell and the mycelium, right? So when we see these mushrooms sprouting, okay, we think, oh, it's fungus. But actually, the mushroom sprouting outside, what you see above, is just this much, right? Or whatever. But beneath, there is a big layer, and that is the mycelium. So the mushroom may sprout up only in monsoon, but there is a mycelium all year round underneath, inside the soil. Much of this mycelium also binds different trees, roots of different trees. So it's like a network down there, and that actually helps to hold the soil. All this is just coming up. Since the last 10 years, much work is happening in this area, and we have heard of genome, right? So similarly, we have these microbiome. So myco means mushroom actually in Greek and Latin. So myco, whenever you hear the word myco, it has something to do with fungus. So microbiome is, because there are so many, we need to see what all is there in the soil beneath us and how it's helping us. And they also are important. Some of you may have heard about these, I don't know, mycorrhizae, which are also fungi, which grow in association with roots of trees. And so remember we said that fungi can be parasitic or even symbiotic. So this is where the symbiotic part comes. So the fungi are growing, sticking to the roots of the trees, and the trees provide them some nutrients, and the fungus provides the trees some nutrients. So it's like a give and take, and that's how. Now, this is the last thing I would like to leave you with. Everybody is aware of www, right? I don't think we can even breathe these days without the internet. But there is something else that is coming up because of what I just told you, this mycelial network that is beneath the soil. And this www is called Wood Wide Web. Not the World Wide Web, but the wood. Wood means forest. So this web, which is across the forest, but underneath. This is something that is coming up in recent years. Okay, and this is the same mycorrhiza. Here again, I would just like to give a little bit of caution. Sometimes what happens is that when we read these different blogs and all, this looks it's like, you'll just fall in love with the idea that there is this entire network spanning across kilometers, and trees are exchanging nutrients across trees which are so far away. So yes, there are a lot of indications that this is there, but it is a field of active study, because in science we sometimes need to go to the actual, detecting ki ha, kaun sa nutrient share ho raha hai, what is happening. So this is being done, but this is an idea that is fast gaining approval among scientists, that there is a wood wide web, and that is what is actually helping everything to sustain. So as I promised, I'll leave you with this for now probably. And in the beginning, we started off with thinking about what fungi are. We spoke about a little bit about ourselves and a little bit about the nature. Okay. So I just hope that a little bit, I don't know whether this session now has led to some change in your opinions about this. Uh, First we had this and this. I hope it's not this, at least now, at least a little bit. And this is something for us to think about. I mean, as you go out now, walk across, there is something that is invisible. It's not just the cute mushrooms that pop up. So that's all probably for now, and we can discuss as per the question. So yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay, so the question is related to the secondary growth, whether it also happens in the forest, right? Okay, that's a nice question actually, and the answer is a little complex. First thing is that this stationary growth, just to add, is also found in bacteria. So it's not a concept very unique only to fungi. Even bacteria produce antibiotics, right? Many antibiotics bacteria produce, and they also produce it in this secondary phase. Now, so the answer is yes to your question, that yes, it would be found in forests also. And in fact, there is a very high chance. See, when we grow things in the petri dish in the lab, we provide them with a very ideal condition. Lots of everything, usko jo bhi chahiye, carbon, nitrogen, buffer, salt, water, everything, the right temperature. Nature is not it's not so accommodative for it cannot, because there is so much. It cannot cater specifically. So many a times in nature, the organisms are almost growing in that stage where there is new, aaj hai, kal nahi. So they grow, but then they are for a large time they would be probably existing in the stationary growth itself. So I mean, I'm able to answer this from a general understanding. So yes, uh, so for example, if you go and find, if you're able to zoom in, maybe you would find that there is a fungus jiske aaju baju mein nothing else is growing. Of course, we can't see it so easily in a natural environment. So if you remember, when Fleming had discovered penicillin, he had found one, by accident he had discovered it, and he saw one fungus, and uske baju mein nothing else was growing. That gave him a question ki why this is happening. So it's difficult to replicate these scenes in nature, but at the phenomena level, yes, it does happen. Hmm. Hmm. in short, the question is that is an previous thing. So the question is that when the fungus is having this primary growth, where there is a lot of food, and then there is another growth phase where there isn't food. The question is that just as plants produce seeds, because the roots can only spread this much, and the seeds are actually they would propagate life ahead. So something like that, does it happen in fungus? Have I articulated it okay? So the answer is yes. So remember, we spoke about these fruiting bodies and spores. Okay, so at least for the filamentous fungus, means the fungus that produces that cottony mycelium. Yes, so actually it's exactly that. So basically that stalk and that round thing will have the spores. Okay, these spores, just as a seed needs to germinate, the spore needs to germinate. Okay, so germinate means what will happen in case of, though we call it, actually it's called germination. The process is called spore germination. So basically that is why it needs a slight height. Everything, if you think evolutionarily how it's arranged. So the spores are always at a height and they would be dispersed. Now suppose the fungus has utilized its food here, but the spore is going to land there. There may be food. Similarly, spores are going to be carried by winds and everything, by insects, by animals, on their legs and on their wings. So the fungus is going to explore. So this fungus may not be alive, but as you said, the species will keep on propagating. And biology, I think, is succeed only if there is growth. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, a little bit, yes. Hmm. Hmm. But seeds are actually a better comparison. Pollen grains are not exactly a better comparison. The pollen grains also need to sit on the corresponding flower, and then this thing has to happen. But even in fungi, these there is in some fungi there is a male and a female mycelium, and then these spores need to the spores don't unite, but the spore goes and sits on another mycelium. So there is whatever you want. I mean, there are all sorts of varieties of fungi which use these different strategies. Environmental conditions that yes. So as with all other living organisms, environmental conditions are the most important factor which matter whether something will survive or not. So so fungi that survive in these hot and humid climates are accordingly. So sometimes fungi are found in very acidic environments. They are found in the snow mountains also, even in Antarctic. Fungi which are thriving, not just dormant. They are thriving. They are growing there. Are found. So there are different fungi who are adapted to different kinds of environment. And if you pull that up and put it here, it will not be able to grow here. So it's selected and adjusted to that particular. Okay.
One is, why is it so difficult to grow some kind of fungus? And hence, why are some kinds of mushrooms well? Why are some much more effective?
Okay. So the specific mushroom I am not aware of, but I can answer this. Hmm. Hmm. Yes, climatic conditions is one thing. Another thing is its association with trees, which is also related to the climatic condition. So many a times, if you see mushrooms growing at the bottom of trees, right? Actually, the mycelium is associated with the roots of those trees, and only the fruiting body comes out. So some of these mushrooms, which are very niche, maybe not in India, but even outside any other type. And even in that, some of them may be poisonous. So you need a lot of knowledge. But the answer I would like to give is that apart from the environment, it is also the living environment, not just the temperature and the pH, but also what kind of trees are there. The roots to support the growth of those mycelium. Only then those mushrooms will spring up. So if you want to artificially grow them, you would have to have forests of those trees or plantations of those plants, and then you would get. So maybe that is the reason that some of them become expensive. These button mushrooms they are grown on dried hay and things like that. So they are much easier and hence cheaper. Okay. So um, if they're asking for a huh, so about eating, this is something that needs really a lot of caution. And if it's only seeing, then yes, during the monsoon time, any area which has decent amount of vegetation, the hilly areas or even hilly, but there should be trees there. So Western Ghats is a good place for that. Like even on the way from say Mumbai to Goa, there are these different ghats which are quite scenic. And rather, some of these glowing fungus pictures are from those ghats. There is this Chorla Ghat and some other ghats which come en route Mumbai to Goa. Now, specific answer, I'm not sure. And about eating, I would really like to put a caution because there is also this understanding that colored mushrooms are poisonous. There is this many a times, yeah. But that's not the case always. One of the most dangerous mushrooms is not colored. That amanita, right, which is called the death cap fungus. Even if you consume a little bit, it's done. It's a fatal one. But that is not red with the white spots that they show sometimes. It's just beige or greenish in color. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and they are expensive. No, no. There are some 100 and something, 120 or something types of mushrooms which are known to be poisonous. Of course, there would be many unknown, but the total number of mushrooms or types known are far more than that, right? Many more. There would be thousands. So I don't think majority of mushrooms are poisonous, but maybe that is spread because you should not just go about picking and eating because it can really do a lot of harm. No, unfortunately not. Oh, okay, so what was the first question? The first thing was that is it a myth that all majority of the mushrooms are poisonous? So what I was saying is that I don't think that there are some 120 or something species of mushrooms that are known to be poisonous, really poisonous, and there would be thousands otherwise. So that's not true. And the other thing, sorry, I just missed something. Yeah. So how do you distinguish? Is there a way by visually looking one can distinguish? It is actually quite a skill, I think. Okay. And it's not very easy to make out just by look. It's like many of these, tribes and all, which they stay in a particular area over the years and centuries. They have learned that skill maybe by trial and error. कि ये poisonous है, ये नहीं है. But in the lab or there are some ways. So, for example, the mushroom has a cap like this, and underneath there are these lines, right? Gills bolte hai usko. So there are these different. So what kind of patterns are there on that? Some impressions, like stamp-like impressions, are taken of these, and based on those patterns, if there are experts, they would really know whether it's poisonous or not. So what is done is, if somebody falls ill and you know that he had consumed this, then you would go and do this print business if there are experts, and then they would come to the conclusion that okay, because different mushrooms have different poisons. So even if you want to do some kind of a treatment, it's not possible. So for that purpose, they do this spore impression. It's called, mushroom impression. So, but it's quite a sophisticated and very niche area. I only know about it. Oh, I thought you're asking me to see them. So, does the online audience have any other questions? You can either put it in the chat if there is anything. Oh, yeah.
So before we stop the live stream, just a notice of our next few sessions. October is a month with 5 Sundays. So the 2 weeks from now, on the 29th of October, Sunday, we will be live from the uphill, the ultra high power laser matter interactions lab at the IFR. That's an online only session. You will see the whatever gigawatts and petawatt lasers that we have in that group. And following that, 6th November at Frisbee Theatre, it's actually going to be a Frisbee House opposite Frisbee Theatre. Is going to be a session on the physics or the lack of physics in movies, both Hollywood and Bollywood. That should be a fun session. And keep looking at. Eventually, we will have our Diwali session, which is connected with light, and in December we will have the Nobel Prize session. So keep following Chai and Why. Please do attend our program, watch it online, share it with your friends. And on that note, we're ending the live stream. Live audience, don't go away. We can have some more questions. There's a small chai the guy has kept somewhere. You can have that as well. Online audience, sorry, you don't get chai. So on that note,
Thank you.